Hey, I'm back with another anime recap. Asahi, a regular high school student, spots a TV announcement claiming that he'll have an exceptionally lucky birthday today. Realizing he's late, he rushes to catch the train for school. Suddenly, he collides with a running girl, who lands on top of his head before quickly dashing away. In the process, she forgets her underwear, which Asahi keeps with him. On the train, he sits beside a girl who falls asleep, holding onto his arm tightly. Despite his attempts to escape, she clings onto him, causing him to accidentally fall on top of her in an awkward position. In response, she kicks him in the head, prompting him to run away. As Asahi descends the stairs, a girl slips and conveniently lands in a peculiar position. Unexpected events unfold, leading to the girl throwing a wild punch and accidentally leaving behind her banana. Dang, she didn't have to hit him that hard. Along the way, Asahi notices a robot collecting litter and discovers it holding a bra, which he picks up. Suddenly, a girl with red hair approaches him, berating him for taking her bra. She feels embarrassed, but before she can retrieve it, the robot starts dragging her away, leaving her without her bra. Continuing on his way to class, Asahi encounters a frenzied dog. Recognizing a potential trap, he decides to ignore it. However, the dog soon shifts its focus onto Asahi, targeting him next. Arriving late to class, Asahi realizes he's forgotten where his assigned seat is located. Seeking help from his friend, he's directed to his seat, where he discovers the same group of girls he encountered earlier that day sitting beside him, including the girl with purplish hair who catches his attention. Despite his efforts to avoid her, he can't help but notice her gaze upon him. The teacher, who is one of the girls, proceeds to introduce all the new students: Aoi, Ilya, Amelia, Karin, and herself, named Mongfa. Upon Mongfa realizing Asahi came late, she playfully scolds him for being a naughty boy. Desperate to avoid attention from the other girls, Asahi keeps his face turned towards the window. When the teacher demands he face forward, he tries to change the way he looks, somehow fooling the girls. Suddenly, Aoi startles him by recognizing him from their morning encounter. He then gets slapped by all of them. Asahi asks his friend, and asks for his name, as he got slapped so hard it wiped his memory. His friend introduces himself as Yoshi. Asahi proceeds to recount the events of his eventful morning with the 5 girls, making Yoshi feel a pang of jealousy. Meanwhile, Ilya can be seen running in the background and discreetly changing behind the lockers. The other girls also begin changing, but Aoi, with a blush on her face, expresses her belief that Asahi isn't entirely at fault for the unusual occurrences earlier. Aoi finds herself stealing glances at Asahi. Yoshi advises him to try resolving any misunderstandings with the girls. While heading towards his locker, Asahi discovers a love note affixed to it, instructing him to meet someone at a specific location. In a rush, he almost collides with Aoi, but manages to avoid it just in time. Aoi inquires about her belongings, but Asahi accidentally gets her red bra from his pocket, which angers her and prompts her to slap him. Meanwhile, Karin appears hungry, and Asahi provides her with a banana to eat. Ilya flees from some dogs and seeks refuge behind Asahi, who tries to protect her by shouting at the dogs, but they still pounce on him. Later, on their way back, Asahi encounters his teacher, who notices his wound and treats it with a cotton ball. The teacher apologizes for misjudging him on the train, and Asahi forgives her. Amelia enters the scene and inquires about her bandages, and Asahi realizes he has her bra, which he returns to her. Amelia acknowledges that it was not Asahi's fault for taking it, and apologizes for her behavior. Towards the end of the day, Asahi decides to check the contents of a note he received, which leads him to a colossal sakura tree. While he is there, Aoi approaches him and confesses her love for him, causing him to blush and feel stunned. As he releases Aoi's underwear, which had been caught on a branch of the tree, she reiterates her feelings but abruptly notices her undergarment and flees. Ilya comes over and barks in Asahi's ears, after which they walk away together, and he also declares his love for him, but Asahi remains quiet. Suddenly, their teacher rushes in and pulls Asahi along into an alley without providing any explanation. She senses something ominous approaching and tightly clings to Asahi. Men can be seen approaching in the distance. After the departure of the men, the teacher remains in the same position and reveals to Asahi that someone is pressuring her into an unwanted marriage. She expresses her apologies, although he reassures her that no apology is necessary. Asahi, however, feels bewildered because he believed such a commitment should be reserved for someone you love. The teacher insists that she does love him and emphasizes their gender and their relationship. She asks him if he likes her, but he abruptly flees. Shortly after, Karen discovers him and approaches him with a wedding dress, leaping towards him. Asahi attempts to ignore her and escape, while Karen discloses that she is in fact a model and can be seen on numerous billboards. Asahi wonders if her attire is for a photo shoot, but she reveals that it is intended for their wedding, the wedding between Karen and Asahi, as she confesses her love for him. She leads him to a love hotel, and Asahi suggests they exchange vows first. Unable to reject a model as his wife, he asks her to close her eyes, and as she waits with anticipation, she eventually urges him to end the suspense. However, unbeknownst to her, Asahi has already departed while her eyes were shut. Disguised as someone else, Amelia approaches Asahi and requests his signature. He starts writing his name, only to discover that it's actually a marriage document. Once again, the mischievous robot seizes Amelia's bra. Finally returning home, Asahi encounters 5 girls kneeling before him. Aoi warmly welcomes him, but he becomes uncertain and shuts the door on them. The girls inquire if he desires dinner, a bath, or even Amelia herself. Although he believes it to be the wrong house, they assure him that it is indeed his. Perplexed by their presence, Asahi receives a message from his father, explaining that these 5 women are potential marriage candidates. His father mentions that one of them, Ilya, is actually a guy, but he advises not to limit oneself based on gender in this era. Furthermore, his father reveals that all of them will be staying with him today, and whether Asahi chooses to marry all of them or part ways with them is entirely up to him. Aoi inquires about Asahi's dinner preferences, sparking an argument about what to eat. Frustrated, Asahi raises his voice, demanding that they all leave. The girls, disappointed, kneel down, explaining that it's unkind of him to dismiss them immediately when they have nowhere else to go. They reveal that they have been staying in hotels until now. Asahi then suggests they continue living there since there isn't enough room in the house for 5 girls. However, to his surprise, they unveil that the house has miraculously been renovated in just one day, providing ample space for everyone. Asahi counters, expressing his concern as a guy about living with girls, as weird stuff could potentially happen. In response, the girls assure him that they wouldn't mind any weird stuff happening. The school even granted permission for the teacher to live with him. Curious if he likes them, they decide to prepare a meal together and set up a table. They feed Asahi together, and he eventually decides to take a bath. Karen follows him, attempting to make advances, but he promptly asks her to leave. He notices that Amelia is already in the bath and chooses to leave her undisturbed. After cautiously entering his room to ensure it was empty, he finally allowed himself to relax, only to be startled by the sight of his teacher somehow on the ceiling. Frustrated, he raised his voice, reminding them of his previous request not to bother him and urging them to leave immediately. Yet realizing they had nowhere else to go, he made the decision to be the one to leave instead. Uncertain of his destination, he resolved to seek solace under the sakura tree, the place where everything had changed. Aoi quietly approached him from behind, revealing her long-held curiosity about the mysterious person who had touched their lives in such a profound way. Asahi. Overwhelmed by anxiety, they had unknowingly overstepped their boundaries. Aoi sincerely apologized, assuring him that they would respect his boundaries and find their own way. Moved by their words, he assured them it was all right and offered his home as their shelter, acknowledging that he couldn't simply cast these girls aside. However, he made it clear that they would no longer intrude upon his life in such a manner. Aoi promised to do her best, and he responded with a gentle smile, prompting her to shed tears of relief. Meanwhile, the girls busily packed their belongings, believing they had to leave, until Asahi firmly stated that they were staying. The condition was simple: they had to behave themselves. And with that, their journey of life together began. Asahi awakens and discovers an unexpected presence beneath his bed, along with all the locks in his room mysteriously unlocked. To his surprise, he finds Amelia using his foot to sign a marriage license, which angers him. Meanwhile, Aoi is writing people's names on the food, causing further frustration. Amelia, eager to write Asahi's name, struggles with the characters and ends up making a mess. Later, they learn that there will be a kanji test, much to Amelia's dismay as she finds it challenging. The teacher asks Karen to write a sentence on the board, and she successfully accomplishes the task. However, When Amelia takes her turn, she completely botches the phrase, resulting in an embarrassing phrase displayed on the board. The group discovers they have a test approaching, and Amelia naively believes it will be easy. When she returns home, she feels disheartened after losing a game of rock, paper, scissors and vows to find a way to always win. Amelia spends the entire night and morning strategizing, determined to master the game. Confident in her newfound skills, she wagers all her puddings on the next game. She lost it all. Meanwhile, Aoi prepares Asahi's lunch and engages in a conversation with Yoshi, who realizes that Aoi has prepared all of Asahi's favorite foods. Asahi wonders about Amelia's whereabouts, only to find her in her room feeling upset. He overhears her practicing recitation of kanji and notices the difficulties she faces due to being from a different country. Amelia is diligently studying for the upcoming test, and Asahi feels compelled to help her. Together, they visit a library, where they practice writing kanji. Despite Asahi providing easy words, Amelia struggles to write the correct characters. Witnessing her intense effort, Asahi asks her why she is pushing herself so hard. Amelia explains that she wishes to succeed and be able to communicate in his language. Overwhelmed with emotions, she runs away and isolates herself in her room. Asahi enters and attempts to apologize, but Amelia asks him to leave her alone, realizing how unkind she had been. She had yelled at him, but deep down, she wanted to express her gratitude and kindness. Amelia apologizes for her behavior, and Asahi, appreciating her determination, reassures her that he wants to support her. Her efforts to learn his language make him happy, and he encourages her not to be too hard on herself. Amelia notices a gift he left for her, flashcards he had personally made to aid her in learning. Grateful, she thanks him and cherishes the thoughtful gesture. The other girls feel envious upon witnessing this exchange, fully aware of the depth of Asahi's gift. They realize that the bond between a man and a woman is something special. As Asahi opens the door, they inadvertently stumble inside. Meanwhile, Amelia surrounds the house with kanji characters to immerse herself in learning the language. On the day of the test, Amelia demonstrates significant progress, leaving her feeling proud of her hard work and grateful for the support she received. One day, Ilya gets a flashback to when his dad was forcing him to be a boy, even though he was born as a girl and would like to stay that way. Behind Ilya, Asahi opens the door and they stare at each other in shock. Asahi then apologizes and closes the door, although he's not embarrassed because he thinks Ilya is a boy. But since Ilya is actually a girl, she screams from embarrassment. Aoi, Ilya, and Mungfa find a game where if you get first place, you get a hot spring vacation trip for 2 people. They all decide to play it, with Ilya going first and she gets first place. We now see all of them walking to the hot spring, meaning apparently Aoi and Mungfa also somehow got first place. They arrive at the hot springs and are kinda weirded out by it, although Amelia loves it. Mungfa says it'll probably be fine once they go inside, although it's even weirder with a giant welcoming them in. The giant asks how he should arrange the rooms, and Amelia says she wants to all stay in one room. But Asahi cuts her off saying to divide the rooms into boys and girls, meaning Asahi and Ilya will be together, and the rest of the girls will be together. They get to their room, and Ilya is feeling awkward since technically he's not a boy. He tries to get out, saying he snores really loudly and grinds his teeth when he sleeps. But Asahi says it's okay and slaps his butt, making Ilya feel weird. Karen and Amelia then come in asking them to play table tennis. All of them start playing table tennis and have fun. Ilya is still feeling awkward about earlier, but when Asahi asks him what's wrong, he says it's nothing. Karen says Mungfa should back down since she's older than the rest and should be getting tired. Mungfa responds with an extremely hard hit, with the ball going all around the room, hitting Asahi in between his legs and fully cutting Karen's clothes. Asahi then falls on the ground from how much he is hurting. Now at nighttime, they all eat dinner together. Amelia then says, "Aren't we supposed to eat sushi off a naked person at a hot spring?" And Asahi is confused and says no. The giant then appears and says we can't offer that, but he can offer a tang platter, which is a bunch of fruit. He then explains something called a tang has been living in this hot spring since long ago. Amelia asks what a tang is, and Mungfa says it's a legendary creature spoken of through the ages in Japan, and that monks training in the mountains turn into tangus. Aoi then points out depictions of a tang. The giant then says one of his ancestors from many generations ago saw a tengu while they were at this hot spring. "Protect my sacred ground," is what the tengu said. He says no one believes that story nowadays though, and Karen agrees saying it sounds stupid. They then go to the baths, with Asahi taking Ilya to the men's bath. Ilya doesn't know what to do, as she is a girl, and Asahi will find out if she takes her clothes off. Ilya tells him to stop slapping her butt, but as Asahi is apologizing, Ilya realizes he has no clothes on and looks away from embarrassment. Ilya tries to figure out how to hide the fact that she's a girl and sees a Tang mask on the wall. At the girls' room, Karen says Aoi has been hiding a lot under her clothes, but she then points out Mongfa. Amelia then gets embarrassed that hers isn't as big. Asahi asks what's taking Ilya so long, and she comes out wearing the Tang mask under the towel to make it seem like she has a big thing. Asahi calls her a fine specimen. Asahi asks why she is also hiding the top part of her body, and Ilya makes the excuse that her body is really hairy. Ilya tells Asahi to stop looking at her so much, and he apologizes. Asahi then says he'll scrub Ilya's back. When he stands up, he gets embarrassed because of their size difference and covers his up. As Asahi is washing her back, he says that Ilya isn't even hairy and says she's silky smooth. Ilya then stands up, interrupting him, saying she'll wash his back now. She immediately gets embarrassed and says that's enough for now. At the girls' bath, Aoi and Mongfa are resting in the bath, while Amelia is washing up and Karen is trying to peek into the boys' bath to see Asahi. Ilya and Asahi go into the sauna, and Ilya already wants to get out, but Asahi is fine, saying that for a man this heat is child's play. Ilya then decides she's gonna stay in the sauna for a long time to seem like a man. Asahi says he's starting to get dizzy, and is about to ask them to get out, but then sees Ilya. He says Ilya truly is a man among men, and runs out. She then goes to the open-air bath, but then her towel flies off from a gust of wind. Asahi thinks she's still in the sauna, and says he'll go to the open-air bath. At the girls' bath, Karen and Amelia are making progress on peeking in the men's bath. They finally get a peek, and see Asahi walking out. They then all see Ilya posing as the Tang. They all get scared and run away. Asahi runs to Ilya, telling her that the Tengu is here, and Ilya makes it back on time to seem not suspicious. She then slips on a bar soap, and goes unconscious, with Asahi finding out she's a girl. She then wakes up in her room and realizes Asahi found out she was a girl. He apologizes, saying that he didn't realize she was a girl, but Ilya also apologizes, saying it's her fault that she pretended to be a man. She asks if Asahi is annoyed that she acted like a man, but he doesn't mind, saying she must have a reason for it. She then says that her father's dying wish was to have a boy, so ever since she was born, he told her to live his life as a boy. Asahi then asks which she would prefer, to act like a boy or girl, and Ilya cries, saying she wants to be the real her, and to live as a girl. Asahi tells her that's fine, and to live as a girl from now on. She then gets a flashback to Asahi as a child, giving her the same smile. Asahi says he's going to bed now, and tells her to get some sleep, and she says thank you for everything. The following day, as they're leaving the hot springs, they talk about how they saw the Tang, and Ilya gets embarrassed. Now at school, Ilya starts dressing up as a girl and her classmates love it. Asahi's friend Yoshio says who would have thought Ilya was a girl, but Asahi tells him that her actual name is Irina. Asahi's teacher, which is Mongfa, tells him that his necktie is loose and fixes it for him, while Yoshio watches in jealousy. In class, Yoshio tells Asahi that he's lucky their teacher did something like that to him. Amelia gets disgusted by what Yoshio is saying, and Karen says why like Mongfa when there's a young model right here herself. Yoshio says Mongfa has that cool and capable lady vibe. At home, Mongfa is getting drunk. Aoi tells Mongfa to keep it in moderation, then she hugs her for no reason. Irina then tells Mongfa that she's sticking out. Mongfa tells Asahi to fix it, causing him to spit out his drink and says to do it herself. She then goes to hug him, but Karen holds her back, but then loves her as well. Then Irina, then Amelia, then Aoi again. She then says that she loves them all and falls asleep, and Asahi puts her to bed. Asahi goes to his room and tells Amelia to stop doing that. What the hell? The man stands up and tells Asahi he's coming with him, then knocks Asahi out. He wakes up and the man on a screen says that Asahi is bait to lure a certain girl in. A big explosion happens, and the man says I guess she's already here while Asahi is still trapped. Mongfa then finds her and starts taking pictures of him, saying he looks cute. Mongfa gives her clothes and says let's go. Asahi asks why everyone is on the ground, and Mongfa says they must have fallen asleep. They then see a man that is still awake, and he charges at them, and they deal with him pretty quick. Another man shows up and they also defeat him easily, wrapping him up and hitting his head. They run to the elevators, and it appears they aren't working. Mongfa says she has to fix it in the control room. She then starts analyzing the building and figures out it's on the 10th floor. She says let's head there, but when they get there, the door is locked. Mongfa says she has an idea and hangs off the side of a building with a rope, breaking into the window with Asahi. She starts programming on the computer and fixes the issue, but suddenly a hole in the ground opens, and a man comes up, taking off the sheets on him. And it's the main man, causing Mongfa to get scared. Mongfa asks who he is, and the man starts calling her the Bloody Tiger, making Mongfa worry. He explains Mongfa was a woman who was once feared, which is now just a laughingstock, and charges at her, although she blocked it and hit him against the wall. He starts saying there was once an agent who struck terror into those from the underworld. Countless organizations were destroyed by a girl named Bloody Tiger, which is Mongfa. A few years ago, his team was wiped out by her, and he is now here to get revenge on her. He charges at her again, and she gets whipped at the wall. He tries to slam her, but she dodges. He then says, "I guess I'll take what's most precious to you," and walks towards Asahi. She jumps at him but gets blocked, but then lands a hit on him, although he's able to grab her leg. Mongfa tells Asahi to hit the switch. Asahi goes to hit it, and the bed starts spinning. The man then gets wrapped up and tied to the bed, and Mongfa hits her and tells Asahi to come. She tells the man that that string is made from a special material, and that he'll never be able to break out of it. The string gets tighter and tighter as the bed spins, and eventually chokes him, as Mongfa and Asahi run out. Asahi presses the elevator button, and Mongfa realizes Asahi has been hurt, but he says it's not serious. She rips off some of her clothes and wraps it around the part where he got hurt. Mongfa then apologizes and says this is all her fault. She then says that she was destined for the life of destroying people. It was all for her missions, and she thought it was okay. But at one point she thought, what am I doing? She then left the organization she did her missions for and chose to become a teacher, where she can build futures instead of destroying them. She says it was very funny, and it was the first affection she has ever felt, and she finally felt like a real person. But today, this all ends for her. She then walks into the elevator and says no matter what, she will always protect Asahi. As she comes down, there are several people waiting for her with guns, and she begins to defeat them one by one. She eventually is able to steal a gun from one of them and uses it to her advantage. She defeats all the ones that are here, and Asahi comes out the elevator and asks if she's okay. She then says there's more up ahead, and tells him to escape through the emergency exit at the back of the elevator. Asahi says she's coming too, right, but she just tells him to go. Asahi refuses, but she then shoots to the side of him, emotionally saying he'll get in her way. Asahi runs away thinking about her, while Mongfa continues to fight. She finishes and walks out, falling on the floor, crying. She then hears a window break and the main man from earlier jumps down. She tries to shoot him, but with his armor it does nothing. He extends his robotic arm, pushing her to the wall, and says, "Playtime is over," and asks how he shall torment her. A fire extinguisher then comes flying and frees Mongfa. The man looks back and sees Asahi and calls him a brat. Asahi charges at him but immediately gets thrown to the ground. Asahi then says that he won't let the man put her hands on Mongfa anymore, causing Mongfa to have a flashback to when he did something similar in the past. The man starts walking towards Asahi and grabs his clothes to pick him up, but Asahi has lotion all over him, causing him to only pick up the clothes. Asahi then throws a lotion balloon at the man, then holds an electrical stick to his body, and he starts overflowing with electricity. Asahi then tells Mongfa that now is the time, and she charges at him and punches him, throwing him into the wall, defeating him. Mongfa then asks Asahi if he's hurt, but he says he's okay, just a bit sticky and gross. She asks why he came back, and he says he didn't want to go home without her. He then says her past doesn't matter to him, and he knows her as the teacher he loves, and someone a part of his family, causing her to tear up and hug him really hard. Asahi extends his hand and says, "Let's go home now," and that the others are probably waiting for them. The following morning, Asahi's alarm goes off, but he's not in his room. Karen comes home and walks in shocked from what she's seeing. The rest of the girls walk in and ask what's wrong, then all see Asahi sleeping on Mongfa. At night, Asahi goes to a store and sees a magazine with Karen on the front. He checks out his groceries and walks out, looking at his phone. He then looks up and sees a flying machine looking at him and starts charging up something pointed at him. The machine then blows up, and he looks up and sees a magical girl, which is Karen, although Asahi doesn't see who she is. At school, he tells his friend Yoshio that he saw a magical girl, but he makes fun of Asahi. Karen then comes up to Asahi and says, "Let's make love together in bed," causing both boys to spit out their drink. She says spitting out drinks is gross, but Asahi says it's her fault she said something so weird. Karen says in a love story, everything happened suddenly, and that she's in love with him, so it's fine. She hugs him and says he's getting too lovey-dovey with the other girls, and says she found Mongfa and Asahi in a weird position yesterday, causing Yoshio to get jealous. Asahi says it's a misunderstanding, looking back at Karen, but she has a serious look on her face, looking out the window. The other classmates also look out the window confused, seeing a huge machine flying in the air. Yoshio shows Asahi it on the news, and the news reporter says according to experts, there's a big chance it is of extraterrestrial origin. Similar objects have been appearing all over the world. Mongfa tells everyone to get away from the window as it's dangerous. A machine then flies down to the window and targets Asahi and Yoshio. It shoots something, and Mongfa pushes Asahi out of the way, although it gets Yoshio. A belt gets put around him, and then it explodes. Asahi goes to take a look at Yoshio and realizes he no longer has his private part, and between his legs looks like a girl now. The machines are attacking all over the school and all over the city, and everyone is panicked, not knowing what to do. What's going to happen to everyone? Subscribe to make sure you don't miss part 3.